Yo, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? It is your boy Zeta here, back at it again with Rogue X to bring you guys What If Deku Was Megumi's Reincarnation? Now, this What If collab was probably extremely unexpected to you guys. You guys were probably just like, yeah, you know, Zeta's probably gonna just drop another part to What If Naruto would have won for all. In case you guys haven't seen that, link in the description, as well as link on the top right hand corner of the screen right about now, or probably sooner, depending on my mood. That being said, though, guys, this will be, well, as you guys saw in the thumbnail, as well as on the title, What If Deku Was Megumi's Reincarnation? This is going to be mine and Rogue X's take of what would have happened had Deku been born with Megumi's abilities and power. And seeing as I'm more of like a casual fan of Jujutsu Kaisen, there will be some points in the video where you guys are like, yo, dude, if you don't get this name right, man, I'm gonna crucify you. And I'm just going to be sitting there like, hey, man, bro, I'm sorry. I just don't know the name sometimes. However, in case you care a lot about, you know, like how much knowledge I have about Jujutsu Kaisen, Rogue X's little part that is featured in the video is going to be pretty good on that part. My brain just turned off for a second, which is why I stuttered a lot. But anyways, that being said, this intro is like a minute long already. So yeah, I'm going to stop all the jibber jabber. And Rogue, you can go ahead and take the mic now.
Yo, what is up? It's your boy Rogue X, and straight off the bat, I'd just like to thank Zeta for having me on this collab, being none other than What If Deku Was Megumi's Reincarnation. Now, obviously, I shall just briefly explain the boy Megumi, because, I mean, if you've watched Jujutsu Kaisen, you know who he is. Megumi for Shiguro is actually, well, Megumi Zenin, but, you know, he changed his last name due to his sister, and just not really wanting to be associated with said clan. However, as for Megumi himself, he's quite a calm and calculated person, and is usually willing to, well, sacrifice his life if it means the success or survival of others. And lastly, I shall briefly explain his power. Now, obviously, he himself is an above average human. You know, he has enhanced strength, you know, enhanced speed, flexibility, reflexes themselves. You know, he actually is pretty much enhanced in every category. Then you gotta stack the cursed energy manipulation on top of that, and then obviously his cursed technique itself, which the 10 shadows technique, if you don't know what it is, to sum it up quickly, he can pretty much not manipulate shadows in a sense, but he can do a lot of things with his shadow, and he can store 10 Shikigami in there. Shikigami are obviously animals that he can summon forth and get to fight for him, but Megumi himself is never turned down an opportunity to fight with his Shikigami instead of, you know, letting them do it for him. He fights with them, which is actually kind of OP. As for what animals he has or Shikigami stored within his shadow, I shall be going over a couple of them briefly throughout, you know, my feature of this What If. However, Zeta's going to add in a couple more summonings, you know, just to spice up the 10 shadows technique a little more. Anyway, apart from that, if you guys do go on to enjoy today's video and this collab, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to this channel. Also, once you're done watching this, please consider checking me out. Name's Rogue X. I'll probably be in the link in the description of this video. Maybe, we'll see. But if you're not interested in that, let's just get straight into this What If. Okay, so we're going to start off with none other than Deku's birth. And from here, obviously, Inko and Hisashi are going to give birth to a beautiful baby boy named Izuku Midoriya. However, there's going to be some sort of mutation in his genes just due to the fact that his hair isn't green like Inko's, like, you know, the doctors thought his hair was going to be. However, instead, it's actually going to be a jet black. But let's say for this What If that Hisashi also has jet black hair, so it doesn't really bother him. But I'm also going to have something very sad and tragic here happen. And that's going to be that after Inko gives birth, she is sadly going to pass away. Which means that Hisashi is going to have to raise Deku by himself. And as of right now, Hisashi's job actually wouldn't allow that. So, you know, for the next couple of weeks, Hisashi's going to be, you know, kind of looking for jobs where he can look after Deku and do his job at the same time, you know, get paid and shit. But a lot of things would obviously be bombarding him, not just the death of his wife, but there would be a lot of things, a lot of stress going back and forth, and this would also cause Hisashi to just end up necking it. So Yes, I do mean that in the sense that, he is going to end his own life. I know, dark, very dark starting to a what if, but this pretty much just means that Deku is going to grow up without parents. Which also means that Deku's going to be plonked straight into an orphanage. Now from here, Deku's pretty much just going to be in the orphanage till he's around the age of 4 to 5, and I'm going to explain why. However, while he's here, obviously Deku's going to grow up, but he's not really going to form a lot of bonds just for the fact that he's kind of calm and collective. He's also shy, but not like really inverted type shy. Like, he'll make friends if they come and talk to him, but he would just kind of keep to himself. Then around this time, Deku's going to start going into school, and this is where he would be introduced to Bakugo. Now straight off the bat, Bakugo is going to be a pain in the ass. He would manifest his quirk a lot earlier than all the other kids, and it would obviously be his explosions. However, at this time that everybody else is developing a quirk, Deku would also develop one. And when he goes to the doctor about it, the doctor would tell, the orphanage carers, or caretakers, that Deku's quirk is energy manipulation. He has a certain amount of energy within his body, and he can control that. Although he doesn't know specifically how Deku would be able to control that. That's for Deku to find out for himself. So that's exactly what Deku's going to do. For the next couple of months, he's going to learn how to specifically control this, bring it forth, and use it. He would learn how to reinforce his body with cursed energy, which is obviously what he has access to. That's what this energy is, it's cursed energy. He can charge it into his fist, he can, again, reinforce his body, he can move faster with it, he can do a lot of things with it actually. And while Bakugo is watching this, Bakugo would be inspired to become stronger as well, because, everyone's also boosting his ego, so he pretty much thinks he's top shit anyway. But nonetheless, one day Bakugo would gang up on Deku and would say, what, you think you're gonna become a pro hero with something like that? And he would pretty much provoke Deku to the point where Deku would literally run up to him and just punch him in the gut, and that would be it. Bakugo would be out cold, and then Deku would proceed to beat the shit out of Bakugo's lackeys as well. This would actually end up getting Izuku suspended from school. Not expelled, but suspended. Then once Deku gets back to the orphanage, he'd be scolded by the caretakers, but surprisingly there would be someone there to adopt him. And Deku would actually have to end up meeting this dude. Now, I've done this in another one of my what ifs, okay? And this was none other than what if Deku was Baki's reincarnation. Now, I specifically named a martial artist named Saejima, a reference from a Yakuza game. However, I'm going to do the same here because Saejima is a very good name. So I'm going to have a martial artist by the name of Saejima adopt my boy Deku. And I mean, Deku's not really going to refuse either, because he doesn't really want to stay in this orphanage his entire life. Now, more to the point, okay, Deku would head with Saejima, they would end up going to the dojo, and from here, Deku would just ask one main question. So, Mr. Saejima, I believe, why would you even go out of your way to adopt me? Saejima would have a very big smile as he says, you kid, you have a lot of potential. Now, Deku would look very confused as he's thinking, potential? What is this guy going on about? Saejima would then scratch his head as he says, how should I explain it? You possess a type of thing that one of your great ancestors had. And before you ask how I know this, it's because I was actually friends with your dad. Very close friends, actually. And before your dad's dad passed away, he told me something. There will be a kid born with jet black hair, just like my son. If he possesses an energy manipulation ability, then he will manifest something of very, very great power. And if you're still alive by that time, please train him and teach him how to control it. Now, Deku only being like the age of 5 right now would just kind of be like, yo, like, really? Dude, like, what the fuck are you going on about, right? So, I know it might be hard for a 5-year-old to understand that all, but Deku would take it in bit by bit and would be like, yeah, okay, I can kind of see what you're going on about now. And then Saejima would pretty much sum it up. So, for the next who knows how long, we're going to be training, and I'm going to be teaching you how to fight, how to protect yourself, and how to protect others. Now from here I'm going to fast forward or have a time skip to the beginning of the anime. And to pretty much sum up what has happened in the past like 11 years, I'll just put it simply, right? So Deku has obviously trained, he's become a lot stronger in hand-to-hand combat, he's learned how to embed his energy manipulation style into said hand-to-hand combat, and he has also manifested the 10 Shadows technique. And with the manifestation of this, he was also gained, or not gained, but he was also granted 2 Shikigami, being none other than the Divine Dogs, the Black Divine Dog and the White Divine Dog. However, to call forth on the Divine Dogs, he needs to make a specific hand sign to do so. And also, you're probably wondering, yo, how the shit is this man going to gain more Shikigami? And for that, I'm going to have a simple fix. To put simply, right, my boy Deku can think of a summoning to bring forth, right? But once he summons that, if he wants to be able to control said Shikigami, he will need to defeat it in a fight first. So if it's not the Divine Dogs, right, let's say he wanted to summon Orochi, like that huge snake that he had, he would have to summon forth that, like he would have to imagine Orochi in his head, right, the big snake, and then he would have to proceed to beat it. And then he would gain access to summoning it at will and controlling it. Kinda like how Maharaga is there. Also, if you don't know who Maharaga is, we'll go read the manga. It's quite an important summoning. I'm not really going to explain it, but yeah, there probably will be manga spoilers in this video, just saying. Anyway, usually, I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but I should just quickly wrap this up, right? Usually in Megumi's case, right, in the Jujutsu Kaisen world, he would have to defeat a curse, you know, specifically like an animal or something, as a Shikigami, to then obviously store it in his shadow and bring it forth. But since, well, there aren't curses in this world, he's obviously going to have to think of said Shikigami, bring it forth, and then battle it. That's kind of what I'm doing here to kind of allow him to gain access to more summonings, if that makes sense. Now, more back to the point, right? I know I said I would quickly try and explain what happened during the time skip or to sum it up, but yeah, he would pretty much manifest the 10 Shadows technique. And this would obviously allow him to gain a lot more power. Now, back to what I was trying to say after, you know, this 11-year time skip. Now, school life, you know, it's going to be pretty average. He's going to get decent grades. And as for any bullies, well, my boy Deku's just going to kick their ass. Because we know that my boy Megumi is quite a delinquent in high school and pretty much beat up all the bullies. Now anyway, obviously there's going to be one day, Deku's in class, you know, Bakugo's there, he's being a pain in the ass as usual, and the teacher would ask what they want to do after school, but would then quickly take it back and be like, who am I kidding, yous all want to be heroes, as he throws the paper up into the air, and everyone just goes crazy, you know, showing off their quirks, but Deku's just kind of there thinking, oh, what's wrong with these dickheads? From here, the teacher would proceed to point out that Deku and Bakugo specifically want to go to UA. Now, as for the delinquents and people in class, they're not really going to disagree with the fact that Deku wants to go, considering he is pretty fucking strong. However, as for Bakugo, well, they know that he's just going to get a raging hard on talking about it. And what do you know, literally like 10 seconds later, or not even 10 seconds later, Bakugo would slam his hand against the table as an explosion comes out, and he starts saying, yeah, that's right, I'm gonna go to UA, I'll beat all the mock exams, and all you extras are gonna go be some third rental cop. That made no sense, but you get what I'm trying to say, right? He would just be a fucking prick, just like he was in canon. And then he would go to make his way over to Deku's desk and would go to slam his hand on his desk. However, Deku would grab him by the collar and would slam his head into the table, knocking him out almost instantly. The whole class would go quiet and Deku would apologize for taking action. However, the teacher doesn't really care because he knows himself that Bakugo was not going to shut up. Now, from here, we skip to the end of the day. Deku would head home, you know, he'd go under the bridge. And as for Deku's housing situation, well, he actually would have moved out at the age of 16, so quite recently, and he would have got his own apartment. However, he would still every now and then go and visit Saejima to, you know, have a sparring session with him, you know, get stronger, maybe learn some new techniques, you get the gist. But nonetheless, he would take the short route home and would go under the bridge. Now, as he is going there, he would feel something not only watching him, but also lurking behind him. Then, as Deku quickly pivots on a foot and does a 180, he would see this huge sludge monster standing there. This sludge monster would then say, "Ah, kid, I can sense that you're strong. I need to take your body and use it as a vessel." It would then go to surround itself around Deku. However, Deku's first course of action would be to summon his demon dogs. Then, after he summons those two, he would move in and start channeling his hands and feet with cursed energy. From here, he would begin trying to hit the sludge monster, and at first it would actually seem like it's working. But yeah, that's at first, because the more he hits this sludge monster, well, the more it seems like it's not doing anything. The demon dogs would also be attacking it, clawing at it, trying to eat it even, but again, it just wouldn't be doing anything. The sludge monster would actually be quite pissed at how much Deku's retaliating, so it would smack him into a wall with one hand with pretty much all of its force, and this would make Deku's head rattle as he starts bleeding from his scalp. Then from here, he would just think, yeah, nah, this is too strong to be left alive. So Deku would clasp his hands in a motion as he says, "Sacred treasure, swing." A strange energy would start emitting from Deku. However, as this happens, All Might would arrive as he says, "I am here." Then he would let off quite a powerful punch that would actually send a huge gust of wind down the tunnel that they're in, basically, right? Because overhead is that bridge. But nonetheless, right, this gust of wind would blow the sludge monster to pieces and would cause it to be incapacitated. From here, Deku would see this and would actually be glad, because he then passes out due to exerting his limits to their max. And you're probably like, didn't this man train for ages on end, and now he's suddenly being beaten by a weak ass sludge monster? But the only reason for that is just due to the fact that it was intangible. But don't worry, soon my boy Deku will find a way to be strong enough to even outshine those who have intangibility. Now, more to the point, All Might would bottle up this sludge monster and would actually carry Deku to a hospital, unlike Canon, right? Except after he drops Deku off, he would actually have to run away due to the fact of the time limit, the one for all form, and this pretty much means that the whole Bakugo accident, that's not going to happen. But, however, in return, when Deku wakes up, he would actually see All Might. And yes, we are talking about buff All Might here. But nonetheless, All Might would actually do this, to actually check up on Deku, because he thought maybe the injuries that Deku sustained would actually be kind of bad, but nonetheless, Deku would have recovered pretty fast. And also, as for how long Deku was in the hospital, I'd probably estimate about a day and a half, giving more than enough leeway for All Might to recharge and come back and check up on him. From here, Deku would actually, apologize to All Might for making him take time out of his day to come see him. But All Might's like, nah, I did this on my own accord. I just wanted to see if you were okay. But from here, All Might would actually kind of inspire Deku in a sense to attend UA. But, Deku would be like, well, I was going to apply for it anyway, get in there, beat the mock exam, pass, become one of the top tier students. Well, he wouldn't actually say that, but he would say, oh, I was going to go there anyway. And All Might would be actually surprised, he'd be like, okay, this kid is aware of how strong he is, and he knows what he wants. That's good. Before All Might leaves, he would say, I guess I'll see you at UA, kid, because I believe in you. I think you're strong enough to get in there by yourself. Deku would nod and thank All Might once again for saving him, and All Might would say, well, I'll see you at UA, kid. As he then shrinks down to his Small Might form and actually shocks Deku quite a lot. He would then walk out, and Deku would be wondering what the fuck just happened. After being released, he would dwell on it for a little while and just think, he must have a transformation quirk. Okay. However, I don't think anybody else knows this, so, Deku would keep it quiet. He'd be like, looks like this is a little secret between us, I guess. Now, from here, I'm going to have a time skip, and this is obviously going to be the 10-month time skip. Deku's going to begin training physically, mentally, with his 10 Shadows technique, with his Shikigami, you name it, right? And he's obviously going to be doing this by going to the gym, beating villains at night, so he's actually getting in physical practice, real-time experience, not just training with Saijima and shit like that. He would also gain access to a couple more Shikigami, which I will pretty much explain during the entrance exam. But yeah, pretty much Deku's going to start training and he's going to start working on getting a lot stronger. Now, like I said, after the 10-month time skip, the UA entrance exam is going to begin. And obviously, Deku is going to arrive, right? He's going to sign in, or I say sign in, but he's going to register his quirk, and he's going to head straight into the written portion of the exam. As for the meeting with Uraraka, not going to happen because he doesn't fall over. And as for sitting next to Bakugo, he's still going to do that. Just for the fact that, he's not scared of Bakugo, so what the fuck is he going to do? Anyway, more to the point, written exam, y'all don't want to listen to that, so I'm going to just get straight to the mock exam, right? Deku's going to ace the entrance exam, I say entrance exam, but the written exam just due to the fact that he got good grades. He knows what he's on about. So yeah, bro, written exam, he's gonna blitz that easily. Then for the mock exam, he would actually start warming up by stretching, getting some stretches in, and getting ready to run, because he knows he's gonna have to do a lot of that. Then President Mike would yell as he says, "The gate is open!" As soon as this happens, Deku would try to run past everyone, but he wouldn't be able to do it without hurting anyone. So he would quickly interlock his fingers as he says, "Nue!" A bird would then come up from his shadow as it picks him up by the shoulders, and he literally flies over everyone. Then when he's a good distance in front of everyone, Nue would drop him and would go straight back into his shadow. The first robot in front of him would be a 1-pointer. A robot worth 1 point, which he would swiftly deal with by channeling cursed energy through his leg and kicking its head straight off. He would then continue on, and when he takes a left past the next building, he would actually encounter a 3-pointer. Now he was either expecting to encounter another 1-pointer or a 2-pointer, but surprisingly, he got a 3-pointer. Now from here, with one hand, he would form it into the shape of a snake as Orochi, or the giant serpent as they call it in translations, or different translation, would leap from his shadow as it wraps itself around the 3-pointer's head and squeezes. The 3-pointer's head would then pop off, and Deku would gain 3 points. Now, after the 3-pointer is defeated, Orochi would quickly return to Deku's shadow, and Deku would proceed to call forth his demon dogs. Now, from here, he would tell them to go and pretty much get rid of the smaller robots, being the 1-pointers, while he himself goes and deals with the bigger robots, referring to the 2-pointers and 3-pointers. And pretty much this is going to go on for, I'd say, a good 5 or 6 minutes, right? Deku's just going to round up a shit ton of points. I'd say it's when he gets to about 60 points that the ground starts rumbling. And as soon as it does, Deku would know that something is up. Something is off here, right? So he would call forth his demon dogs to store them back away, and would call Nue, right? Which would manifest and drag him, or fly him technically, to the top of a building, where Deku would see a huge ass robot emerge. He would then think back to when President Mike was speaking of said robots and said that you should probably just run away from them. So Deku would just be thinking, yeah, that must be the 0-pointer he was talking about. Looks like our job is done here. Time for us to go. Deku would then be grabbed by Nue once again, and they would start flying away from the 0-pointer. Or at least that is until Deku hears a scream. None other than a scream of pain from someone, right? So Deku would quickly turn around and see that there is a girl trapped under some rubble. He would also see that she is directly in the path, of the 0-pointer. Deku would quickly lay out a couple plans, right? He can go down there and he can try his best to remove the rubble and then save her by moving her out the way, but by the time he's gotten rid of the rubble, it probably would have already stepped on them. So, the only choice is to destroy the robot. From here, he would command Nue to fly him straight towards the 0-pointer's head as quick as he can, and as he's being zoomed straight towards said 0-pointer, he would be thinking back to some of his training with Saejima. Saejima would have told him about a technique that his his grandfather used, right, with the whole energy manipulation, and it was something that was actually so destructive in terms of attack potency that it was pretty much a forbidden technique. And saying forbidden is kind of an understatement, because this shit could potentially one-shot some of the pro heroes if used correctly. Anyway, while Deku is shot off towards the 0-pointer, he would be suddenly let go by Nue, and he would think, okay, I'll only get one chance at this. Focus. As he focuses everything on getting this right, then he would pretty much do a 1080 spin as he builds up the momentum in his leg, and then kicks it straight towards the 0-pointer's head. Then, at the last possible moment, he would channel cursed energy into his foot, and then kabam! Off goes a very loud bang noise as black and red lightning flash from the attack. As it connects and Deku knows that he's pulled it off, he would say, "Kokusen!" The 0-pointer would actually be moved backwards quite a bit by just this attack, and the reason for this is because of the damage multiplier. Not to mention that it also distorts space, which, in and of itself is quite a destructive move. So yeah, after this black flash lands, the 0-pointer would actually rock a little bit and would end up falling backwards. Then as Deku is falling, he would think, oh shit, I put way too much energy into that attack. I won't have enough to summon Nue. Ah, fuck, is this the end? As he goes hurtling towards the ground. However, last minute, he would feel a slap reach across his face as he slowly inches closer towards the ground. From here, President Mike would be shocked, and actually so shocked to the point that he would just kind of stand there, mouth agape in just awe, as he forgets to tell everyone that the entrance exam is over. Then as he regains what's happened, he would say, "Oh, everyone, the entrance exam is done. Stop fighting." Then, from here, obviously Recovery Girl would come around, she would heal any of the injured people. And once she reaches Deku, well, Deku wouldn't really be injured of any sort, he would just kind of be a little bit exhausted. And also, on a positive note, Recovery Girl would also hand out some candy. But nonetheless, Deku would quickly recover from this, and I say recover, but he would gain the ability to walk and stand again after, I'd say, half an hour of rest. No, he wouldn't be able to use his 10 Shadows technique or manipulate any of his energy, considering how much he used on that Black Flash, but in the end, he would end up walking home. Now, I'll just fast forward to when he gets the letter from Yue, because nothing else interesting is going to happen from there. Maybe except the occasional workout, getting some push-ups in, some crunches, sit-ups, getting on the grind, basically. But nonetheless, the door would ring and he would quickly head to it to receive a letter with the Yue stamp on it. And Deku would be quite excited, so he would head back to the living room and would open it to where a hologram would project none other than All Might himself. Now, as for the speech, he's pretty much going to along the lines of, "Young Midoriya, today I have something very good to announce to you." And then obviously he would go on and say you have a hidden talent. Truly, I'm not saying this because, I'm trying to motivate you. I'm being honest. And then, he would pretty much just say, you have scored yourself 60 attack points and 60 rescue points. I meant 60 combat points, but I couldn't think of the word. So in total, Deku's going to have 120 points, therefore ranking him at the most amount of points gathered since All Might himself, which is quite an amazing feat. All Might would then end it off with saying, "Welcome to Yue, young Midoriya." Deku would then punch the air as he's flipping around, and he's just kind of hyperactive, something that Deku's usually not. But, he would be very excited, because this is something new, he's like, I got in, I can now save more people. And so begins the start of Deku's hero career. Anyway, I'd say that's the end of my part of the collab. Again, thank you, my boy Zether, for allowing me to feature on this. You bet your ass I'm going to listen to the rest of this what if, because I know that you're going to kill it, in a good way obviously. And I shall now hand the mic back over to the boy Zether.
Alright. Thank you, Rogue, for handing that mic back over ever so graciously. Nah, totally kidding. But seriously, though, boys, now I will be beginning the hero's journey towards Deku's, his road to becoming a hero. That being said, I don't really want to waste your guys' time too much, seeing as, you're probably well invested into the series and you don't need to hear another semi-intro before you get into the story. That being said, we're basically just going to hop back into where Rogue had left off. Okay, so obviously, Rogue had basically left off with Deku essentially making his way home and basically making, his couple of adjustments at his house. He would, of course, have gotten the letter from All Might, and you would be pretty excited because, you just got into a national school. You would expect to be pretty damn excited about that. That being said, Deku would, of course, start getting his stuff ready for the very next day, and this is when Deku would basically proceed to pass out. The very next day, Deku would wake up, and it's at this point that Deku would, Deku would basically proceed to just kind of start walking there. Deku, instead of taking the bus or the train or anything like that, would have honestly kind of been a little low on funds at this point. And Deku would have just been like, I forgot to get my check. As Deku would basically proceed to just kind of be like, alright, well, there's nothing I can do about it. Guess I'm going to have to run there. Deku would basically run to the gates of UA, and he would get there with time to spare. It would be about 10 minutes before class starts, and this is when Deku would start walking in there. Deku would look around as he would ask somebody if they know where this room is, obviously being class 1A, and this is when a boy by the name of Kirishima with red hair would come right behind him, and he's like, yo, dude, you're looking for class 1A as well? Deku would be like, yeah, man, I'm just looking for the classroom. It's first day and everything. I don't know where it's at. And Kirishima would be like, bro, same. Mind if I tag along? Deku would be like, nah, man, not at all. And it's at this point that they would both basically start heading their way to class. Now, it's at this point that they would kind of be on the outskirts of UA. And it's at this point that, well, Kirishima would let out his very overly enthusiastic as well as manly nature. Anyways, yeah, he would let out his manly nature and all that stuff. Now, this is when he would basically start talking to Deku a lot. And after about like 2 minutes of walking next to Kirishima, Deku would be like, bro, you are kind of getting on my nerves, bro. I'm going to need you to chill out. And this is when Kirishima would be like, all right, man. This is when he would basically look at him and be like, bro, this school's so manly. As Deku would be like, yeah, bro, for sure. And Kirishima would just continue talking and talking. Deku would look at Kirishima, and in case you haven't noticed, Kirishima is kind of going to fill that Itadori role in the story. That being said, this is when they would both basically finally make it to the door of 1A, and Deku would look at Kirishima and he's just like, well, dude, we're here. I'll be seeing you around. As Kirishima would be like, sure thing, man. As it's at this point that they would basically go inside, and Deku would immediately, upon opening the door, just hear screaming. It's at this point that Deku would notice a yellow bag on the ground, and he would see some movement coming from there. As Deku would just be like, that's strange, I didn't know there was caterpillars in our classroom. As it's at this point that Deku would see Bakugo on top of the desk yelling at Ida, telling him that he's gonna be beating all of you snot-nosed stuck-ups. All of you little rich kids who are privileged and you just got here off of nothing but luck. Yeah, he's gonna be taking all you extras down. Bakugo would continue to talk down on everybody and just call them all extras. And Deku would continue to start chuckling. As it's at this point that Deku would just be like, dude, how are you over here calling people stuck up if this is literally what you're doing? Bakugo would look at Deku and be like, shut up, Deku. As it's at this point that Deku would just start walking towards his desk. However, as he would, Bakugo would throw a kick at Deku, as Deku immediately catches it, and he would hit Bakugo's kneecap right on there, as Bakugo would fall onto the desk and hit his head with a loud bang. Aizawa would kind of smile as he would have ended up noticing that, and this is when he would look at Deku as he's like, Guys, settle down. He would look at Bakugo as he's rubbing his head just like, why you? As he would deactivate Bakugo's quirk, he would look at him and say, if you guys have another one of those little altercations, I'll be expelling both of you on sight. It's at this point that Aizawa would be like, alright, anyways. As it's at this point that Aizawa would be like, they're so weird. I didn't seem to feel as if I erased that other kid's quirk, and he still felt like he had an extremely strong presence around him. Like a very powerful aura. Aizawa would kind of just throw that to the back of his head, as this is when they would basically just all be told to go outside. Obviously, Uraraka would point out the orientation events, and Aizawa would just be like, if you have time to make some orientation ceremonies, then you don't have time to be a hero. If you have all this free time, then you should not be thinking about orientations. You should be thinking about how you're going to make yourself a pro hero in less than 3 years. We don't have all the time in the world, so chop chop, move it. As he would look at the rest of the students, Deku would immediately grab his stuff and he would make his way over to the locker room. As Kirishima would follow behind, they would all basically proceed to get changed, and Kirishima would see Deku's body as he's just like, bro, you're kind of ripped. What do you do? Deku would be like, oh man, I've been training with my dad ever since I could remember. Kirishima would be like, cool, dude, what's his name? Deku would be like, his name's Saejima. And it's at this point that Kirishima would be like, bro, that is such a dope name. He'd be like, so what did you train in? Deku would be like, I trained in some martial arts. He taught me a little bit of everything. And Bakugo would come in out of nowhere and be like, even with all those martial arts skills, you still can't scale up to me. As it to this point that Todoroki would be on the way in the back just putting on his shirt. He'd be like, yeah, he can't scale to you, but he put you on your ass pretty fast. I'm pretty sure he put you there in about 2 seconds flat. As Bakugo would just be like, why you? And it's at this point that Aizawa would walk into the locker room just being like, I hope there's nothing going on in here. He would have immediately realized the tensions were high, and he would go back outside as everybody would meet him there. This is when Deku would basically proceed to be told by Kirishima that what he did in there was pretty manly. Deku would say that he's not trying to be manly, he's just trying to be smarter. And he would then basically explain to him that, he didn't want to start that, but Bakugo initiated it, so he just had to finish it. It's at this point that Bakugo would have heard that, and it would royally piss Bakugo off. It's at this point that basically they would both start grabbing their things and meet Aizawa outside. They would both meet him there, and this is when Deku would basically get the ball thrown at his direction. Deku would catch the ball as he's just like, so what do you want me to do with this? And Aizawa would look at Deku as he's like, I want you to throw that ball as far as you can. And Deku would look at Aizawa as he's just like, so what's the catch here? Like, what is the goal? Aizawa would look at him and be like, for far too long, we've all been pretending as if quirks don't exist. We've all just been having these kids not be able to use their abilities all willy-nilly, but that's the thing of the past. We should have been letting these things be used. That's an outdated point of view. We should let people embrace their gifts and all that stuff. And Deku would be like, yeah, the man has quite a point. As he would basically grab the ball, he would immediately throw it square into the sky. As Deku has a lot of physical strength, however, he's not going to be using no Zapdos, or I guess Nue, right? His name is Nue, the bird thing, right? Nue, yeah. He wouldn't use that. He would quite literally throw it, and he would get a total of 400 points for throwing it as far as he can. See, Megumi, I'd say, nah, it's a little too OP. I'd say 300 meters, right? 300 meters sounds pretty reasonable. He would throw the ball about 300 meters, and everybody would just be shocked, as Bakugo would be up next. He would throw the ball, and he would then be like, huh, beat that, Deku. As Deku would look at Bakugo, he would just kind of just put his hands in his pocket and be like, whatever. As it's to this point that they would basically continue to go on to the rest of the things. The 50-meter dash, Deku would summon Nue, his Shikigami, as he would basically proceed to grab Deku by the shoulders and fly him past the 50-meter dash before Ida's time could even be registered. It's at this point that Deku would then have to take the grip strength, and seeing as Deku could throw the ball 350 meters, he would definitely have just enough strength to shatter the grip strength machine. That being said, they would then have the standing long jump, to which Deku would of course yet again use Nue. And it's at this point that Deku would start doing the repeated side-to-side steps, as he would get a pretty baseline score in that. It's not bad, but it's not great either. And well, after that, they would basically have push-ups, sit-ups, and just basic stuff that you would usually get in some weird quirk assessment stuff. Nothing that you could really use your quirk in. So Deku would basically just have to rely on his physical abilities as for the rest of the portion that he has to basically do things. That being said, this is when they would basically all wrap everything up, and Aizawa would actually see Deku's scores and be quite impressed. Of course, Aizawa would have still told the kids that, one of them was going to get expelled, and this would lead to him basically being like, alright, I was just kidding about the expulsion. I just wanted you guys to try your best, because he sees potential in each and every single one of the students. That being said, this is when the day would get wrapped up, and it's at this point that Deku would go over to grab his stuff and basically start making his way out the door. On his way home, Kirishima would actually end up seeing Deku, and he would end up tagging along with Deku, asking him what those powers of his are. Deku would look at Kirishima and just say that, it's basically just summoning animals. He's like, if I would have put it to you bluntly. Kirishima would be like, oh, that's pretty awesome, but what is it exactly? Deku would sigh. He would just be like, well, my power is cursed energy. It basically allows me to use the 10 Shadows technique, which basically allows me to summon Shikigami. They're creatures from another world that basically allow me to do things that I normally couldn't with my baseline body. And my cursed energy allows me to enhance my physical stats tenfold. As Kirishima would hear this, he'd be like, dude, your quirk is so OP. He would ask Deku what the backlash is, and Deku would say that if he had to say there was one, he would say that it's his energy exertion, because summoning one of these creatures definitely takes a lot out of him, and his Shikigami are very special to him. Kirishima would then look at him and be like, huh, that's pretty interesting, huh? Must be nice to have quite a flashy quirk. As Deku would say, what do you mean? Kirishima would then begin to explain that, in his experience, having a flashier quirk basically really helps you a lot. Deku would be like, dude, you must be insane. Your quirk is crazy powerful. You just need to know how to use it in the right way. There might be a way for you to increase your hardening even more than you already have. Because from what I saw in the quirk assessment, your scores are not half bad. Your physical body in and of itself is actually quite impressive. And if I had to say how strong you are, I'd basically compare you to me. Kirishima, after hearing that, would be like, yeah, I guess you're kind of right. And it's at this point that he would basically look at Deku as he'd be like, well, this is my stop. See you tomorrow. Deku would look at him as it's at this point that Deku would basically just be like, yeah, see you tomorrow, man. As it's at this point that Deku would basically proceed to, hold on, guys, give me a second. Alright, boys, apologies for stopping the video. Somebody just knocked on my door. Anyways, as I was saying, Deku would basically proceed to continue going on home, and this when he would arrive, as he would send a text to Saejima, who was still yet not home. He would tell him that he actually thinks he did quite well for his first day at UA, and he would say that he's quite proud of him. Deku would look at him as you know, metaphorically, of course, as he would just be like, yeah, I mean, I guess I crushed it out there. He would basically send him a smiling emoji, and this is when Deku would just kind of unwind as he would put his stuff away, and this is when Deku would basically pass out for the next day. This is when Deku would basically arrive home, and this is when Deku is basically going to be having about 1 week of normal school situation, seeing as the UA, the Heroes vs. Villains event basically isn't really going to be happening for that much time, I guess you could say. Wait, no. The what's it called? The Heroes vs. Villains event is like right around the corner, so I'm not even gonna say that. Okay, obviously, you know, the Heroes, yeah, the Heroes vs. Villains, and then the US shit, yeah. Anyways, this is when, of course, they would basically, you know, have the little thing with the Heroes vs. Villains, and obviously, this is when Deku would make it a class. Of course, the entire day of school would basically go as you would really expect. And, well, nothing would really be out of the ordinary up until the final class of the day, which is essentially their hero training class. On this particular day, All Might would bust in through the door saying, "I am here," coming in the room like a normal person, as Deku would look at him and just be like, huh, All Might, haven't seen you since the 10-month mark since about like 10 months ago. And All Might would basically proceed to just be like, if it isn't you. Your name is Izuku Midoriya, am I correct? Not gonna lie, I completely just lost my train of thought since I had to pause the video real quick since some outside noise was occurring. Anyways, that being said, this one Deku would be like, yeah, that's right, the name is Izuku Midoriya. All Might would smile as he would say, well, I'm glad you're here. Deku would look at him as it's at this point that All Might would be like, well, anyways, class, you guys, as you guys know, you guys only have 3 years to get ready. So, I will be instructing you all on combat training. And this one he would basically look at them all as he would say, well, learn to your right. As all the students would turn to their right side, they would then see a wall kind of open up. As all of their hero costumes would basically start busting out. It's at this point that he would be like, well, in my opinion, the clothes make the pro, so why don't you guys get suited up and meet me outside of the training area? Everybody would get suited up, and of course, I know that you guys know what his hero costume is going to be. Deku was of course going to be wearing that Jujutsu Kaisen drip, and Deku would go outside as he would basically look very similar to what you guys see in the thumbnail. That's pretty much what Deku would look like in this version of events. Deku would look like the spitting image of that. Imagine Megumi, but My Hero Academia style is basically what this version of Deku looks like. That being said, Deku would basically go outside and Bakugo would see Deku as he's like, whoa, he kind of looks cool. As he would get that thought out of his mind, he'd be like, no, that's Deku. He couldn't look cool even if he wanted to. This is when Deku would basically just go outside and Kirishima would actually see Deku's costume. He'd be like, dude, that is so manly. The black on black just looks so awesome. Deku would look at him and be like, hey man, I appreciate it. As it's at this point that they would both basically fist bump a little bit. As Deku's like, you know what, you're not half bad. Kirishima would be like, I'm telling you man, you just gotta get used to me. As Deku would slowly start taking a small little bit of liking towards Kirishima. This is when All Might would basically announce the teams, and of course, just like in canon, it would be Uraraka and Deku versus Bakugo and Ida. Of course, this is when very basic events would basically go down. Deku would basically use his dogs, his heavenly dogs, to basically track down Bakugo and Ida's location through their sensory abilities and their sniffing, you know, all that stuff. You know, dogs will be dogs. And well, that being said, he would basically summon them as they would immediately track down their location. Deku would look towards Uraraka's direction as he would say, they're over there. Follow my spirit. As he would basically send the white dog to go with Uraraka, as he would stay with the black demon dog looking one, as he would basically proceed to just walk around. And this is when Deku would start hearing explosions and screaming in the background. He would just hear Deku! As it's at this point that Deku would turn towards that direction, he would see Bakugo Bakugo coming in with a giant explosion. As immediately Deku would see that the explosion is about to hit his dog, Deku would jump in the way and Bakugo would hit that explosion, causing Deku to go flying. Deku would immediately get back up as he would wipe some blood off of his cheek. He would then immediately rush at Bakugo, to which Bakugo would throw an explosion to blind him, creating a smoke screen. Bakugo would then launch another one at Deku, but Deku would dodge, and his dog would actually bite Bakugo's calf on the back. Deku would be like, yes, as it's at this point that Deku would start creating some of the hand signs to try to use Black Flash, and right on that instant, Deku's dog would have actually been hit by a full power gauntlet explosion. After getting attacked for about what seems to be about 5 seconds, but an eternity for Bakugo, Bakugo's gauntlet was fully charged and he aimed it straight at his leg. As the entire floor that they're all stepping on, they'd be on like the 3rd floor, keep in mind, would blow up completely. And Bakugo would be sent flying down. However, Deku's Shikigami would end up dying. And he would end up getting royally angry. Deku would immediately just be like, did you just? And Bakugo would be like, I always did hate those little spirits of yours, Deku. Looks like I finally got my revenge. Deku would look at Bakugo and just be like, ah, as he would rush at him. And Deku would then immediately rush towards Bakugo's direction, as it's at this point that Deku would say, how dare you? As it's at this point that Deku would actually end up using one of his summonings, to which he actually ended up discovering during the time that Deku had off. I guess you could say during the time that Deku had after the little entrance exam. See, Deku did have about 3 days, and during those 3 days, after he got home, the very next day when he basically rested, seeing as, you know, the letters did basically take about a week to get there, you know, all that stuff. Wait, no, I'm totally contradicting what we had stated previously. Okay, I'm going to be making a tiny retcon. Remember how I said that the Heroes vs. Villains event was basically right after the first day of school, which was a quirk assessment? Well, scrap that. Instead, it is going to be 1 week after that. And instead of that, they were basically having normal scholastic events. Obviously, during that time, Deku decided that, you know, he was obviously trying to buff himself up. You know, Deku was definitely trying to get stronger. And during that time, Deku would have ended up trying to get a little bit of an OP summoning. However, during that 1 week break, Deku would have actually ended up almost dying. Had it not been for the fact that his body was so durable that Deku slightly survived the onslaught of what ended up happening. See, what ended up happening specifically was Deku ended up trying to think of a powerful Shikigami, and what he had on his mind was a great ape. He was thinking of a giant black gorilla, and well, that is basically what he got. Deku ended up summoning a giant ape, think Gorilla Grodd from the DC universe, and Deku, after doing that, would look up at the behemoth as he would just be like, whoa. But immediately, before Deku even got the chance to speak, his mind would just completely be taken over, seeing as it's a telepathic gorilla, just like Grodd. And it would immediately talk to him as he would say, how dare you summon me, boy? You seem to be so weak, there's no way you could handle me. This will be the day of your judgment. He would immediately rush at Deku, grab him by the leg, and pull a Hulk. If you guys have seen Avengers, when the Hulk literally grabbed Loki and just started slamming him from side to side, that's what would happen to Deku. Deku would proceed to get ragdolled so bad, Deku really thought that this day was the day of his death. However, Deku would get so lucky and barely survive. Just barely, like I cannot stress that enough. He barely ended up surviving that. However, after the ape saw that Deku was able to survive that onslaught, he would look at him as he would say, I'm impressed. Your body seems to have incredible amounts of durability. Maybe in due time you shall be a worthy contractor. I will keep you in thought if you so happen to survive this. I will be going now. As immediately it would just fade away, and it's at this point that Deku would just be lying there on the ground, as Saejima would actually go inside and be like, yo, what is going on? Deku would see this and immediately just be like, oh, my bad. And no, Deku wouldn't be like, my bad. Deku would look at him and just be like, and Saejima would just be like, dude, you need to get to a hospital. As immediately he was taken to Recovery Girl. She kissed him and his healing started going up very fast. Deku would be unconscious for about 2 days and would finally wake up rested. As the next couple of days, he basically just ended up recovering. And he kind of did a little worse on the quirk exam just because, the man was, no, not the quirk exam, but, no, yeah, the quirk exam, because the man was completely dying. Anyways, that being said, this is when I am contradicting myself so bad. What I meant to say was the heroes versus villains. Wait, did I mean to say the heroes versus... I don't know. I am just so lost at this point. Anyways, the point is, Deku ended up summoning himself a giant ape. And in case you're wondering, yo, Zether, where did you get the ape from? I made it up. I just wanted Deku to have the ape, and I wanted to make a reason as to why he had it, when I could have honestly just been like, yep, Deku got it. And you guys couldn't have told me a thing. But instead, I decided to waste like 3 minutes of your guys' life. I do apologize for that. Anyways, that being said, Deku, after seeing, well, one of his heavenly dogs basically die, he would immediately look at him after getting royally pissed off. And Deku would say, Bakugo, you're gonna pay for that. As immediately he would create the hand signs and charge up his cursed energy, as he would proceed to rev up his cursed energy, and he would immediately summon the ape. As he would say, I see you survived. Immediately he would look towards Bakugo's direction and say, is this the one? As Deku would nod, as he would be on one knee after exerting so much energy just to summon him. As well as, the dogs, he even has one. He has two Shikigamis active at once. So yeah, Deku is struggling right now. And it's at this point that the ape would pretty much proceed to nearly kill Bakugo. It would ragdoll him to the point that it happened to Deku, and Bakugo would be unconscious for the next 2 days. All Might would have told Deku to back off, but Deku would have been so angry, he just let the grief and the anger just completely overwhelm him. He let the anger get the best of him, and granted, Deku probably shouldn't have done that. However, Deku was in a bit of a moment, and he was extremely heated. I mean, what did you expect Deku to do? Bakugo pulled a very big DICK move. Like, that is not okay. He killed his literal Shikigami, that's not cool. But anyways, that being said, Deku would basically go up to the room with Uraraka, as he'd basically be limping, and Deku would proceed to create a 100 IQ play to basically get Uraraka to sneak in the room while Deku distracted Ida, and she would touch the bomb before Ida was able to grab her. Ida was almost about to capture her, however, Deku gave her a slight push, and she ended up barely being able to grab onto the bomb, leading to them winning and catching that fat dub. That being said, this is when Deku would proceed to get yelled at by All Might and, scolded for what happened to Bakugo. Bakugo would get healed up by Recovery Girl, and Kirishima would say that, that kind of wasn't a very manly match. Deku would just stay silent and go home, and after this, Deku would rest up for the very next following day of school, which will be a couple of normal days, since Bakugo needs some time to recover. About 3 days would happen, and this is when they would finally go back, and at this point, it would be, let's say, Thursday, right? Thursday would be the day where the USJ stuff happens. Now, it's at this point that all of them would basically arrive. 13 would give her extremely boring speech of just saying, oh yeah guys, like quirks are extremely powerful, however they have the potential to be dangerous. Everybody, of course, knowing that, seeing as they're all like 16, 15 at this point, would not really need to hear that, so I'm just going to skip all that. And it's at this point that I'm just going to go straight over to the action. Immediately, Kurogiri would arrive and say, I do deeply apologize for inviting ourselves, however, All Might must die. As he would immediately recognize that All Might isn't there, he would basically be like, where's All Might? As it's at this point that Deku would try to summon Nue, however, before he got the chance, Kurogiri would notice that he was trying to do something weird, and he would immediately teleport him out of there. However, right as Deku would almost fall into the water, Nue would catch Deku barely by the shoulders, and he would put him on top of the boat, as Deku would basically look around at his surroundings, and he would see Mineta and Tsuyu jump out of the water immediately, as Deku's like, huh? When did you guys get here? They would all be like, we're gonna ask the same to you, and Tsuyu would be like, ribbit, all that stuff. This is when Deku would look at her and just be like, well, how are we gonna get out of this? He would then look at Tsuyu and be like, wait, why did they send you to a water area? They must have known our quirks, didn't they? As Tsuyu would be like, judging from the fact that they sent me here, they probably aren't aware of them. Deku would be like, yeah, I thought so. As it's at this point that Deku would basically proceed to be like, alright, well, I'm gonna get us out of here. As he would say, Nui, lightning, as immediately Nue would quite literally dive down to the water and just let out all of the volts of electricity that he has. As yeah, the water is a very powerful conductor of electricity, meaning all of the villains, they got folded like a lawn chair. That being said, he would basically proceed to grab the rest of them, and Suyu would grab everybody with her tongue as Nui grabbed Suyu, and they would all make it to a very safe distance. It's at this point that Deku would basically land, as he would see that Aizawa is fighting against a bunch of villains. Deku would look at Suyu as he would say, "You guys need to get out of here and call for reinforcements. Tell Ida he's the fastest one here." They would say, "What about you?" Deku would say, "Me? I'm gonna go kick some ass." As it's at this point that Deku would rush over with Aizawa, and they would both start tag teaming them. It would be on some Batman and Robin stuff. However, Deku would be Batman, and they would be going crazy. They'd be going ham. It's at this point that Deku would be on his final and last villain, which has a very powerful durability quirk, which lets him tank attacks on a very powerful level. Deku would have been using his most powerful attacks and combining them with some cursed energy, and Deku would basically be having Nui come down and strike it, as you know, he ended up taking down another villain. However, as Aizawa saw this, Shigaraki would have also been watching and getting very angry at this, as he would tell the Nomu to attack that brat. The Nomu would do as it's told, and it's at this point that the Nomu would blitz at Deku. However, right as Deku was about to get punched straight in the ribs, probably rendering him useless for the rest of the event, Aizawa would jump in the way of the attack, getting sent flying off into the distance, and Deku would immediately turn to see the Nomu, as it's at this point that Deku would be like, "There's no way." At this point, Deku would get angry seeing that, you know, that happened to Aizawa. And it's at this point that Deku would summon the giant snake. I believe the name that Rogue X gave it was the name Manda. I believe it was Manda. I don't know. Something like that, right? And he basically proceeded to slither over to the Nomu, increase in size, and swallow the Nomu whole. However, within the snake's belly, the Nomu would quite literally tear out of itself, and it would come back out as the Nomu would rush at Deku. And Deku would fall onto one knee, as it's at this point that Deku would be extremely exhausted. Aizawa would lift his head up just barely to activate his ability to turn off quirks, and the Nomu would punch Deku right on the side of his face, but Deku was able to dodge most of the attack. It kind of like scraped Deku's face, I guess you could say. Deku had that attack landed on him, and he was sent flying. However, Deku would get up beaten and battered, as Deku would say, "Guess I have no other choice." He would then start charging up his Black Flash attack, as the Nomu would move so fast towards Deku's direction, the Deku wouldn't have a chance to react, as the Nomu would rush at Deku and punch Deku square in the ribs. However, Deku would get sent flying, as he would cough out massive amounts of blood. Ribs would be destroyed, Shigaraki would be laughing, and this is where we're going to be leaving off my part for What If Deku Was Megumi's Reincarnation. If you want to find out how the USJ arc basically ends up panning out, and you guys want to see more of me covering the scenario, definitely go over to Rogue X's channel, seeing as that is where the finale of this series is going to be wrapping up. Link will be down in the description, as well as soon as his video is out, I will be of course putting it as one of the after videos, you know, one of the videos that you can click on screen. I don't know if I'm really saying that right, but you guys get the point. Anyways, that being said, Rogue bro, I hope I did justice to Megumi and what you started off. I hope you messed with what I did with the story, seeing as, you know, you kind of set some very high hopes for me, which, you know, I hope I accomplished. But that being said though, boys, make sure to go check out Rogue's channel, as well as subscribe if you guys like the content, as well as maybe let me know what you guys would like to see me improve on, and, you know, subscribe to the channel, leave a like on the video, share the video with a friend. And with that being said, I love each and every single one of you guys. It has been your boy Zether, and I am out. Peace.